Hi, everybody, and welcome to the call center. Because every leader has a story to share. And today, my guest is an old friend of mine, Mr. Abe Jacob, Chief Futureproofist of FutureProof Global Pte Ltd. Abe is a multidisciplinary executive, and he has worked with many companies facing challenges in the fourth industry revolution. He is basically an expert in business transformation. So if you want to transform your business, especially after COVID and what's happening moving forward with AI and everything else, he is the person that you should be getting in touch with. Abe is also he was in his reserve. He's an officer in the Singapore Armed Forces. He was the battalion commander of an artillery unit. Am I right, Abe?
Yes, I was.
Okay, battalion commander of an artillery unit in the Singapore Armed Forces. And well, I think I'll just leave Abe to tell us a little bit about himself, and then we'll go with the flow. Abe, right? So tell me a little bit about you, my friend.
Yeah, so Vasu, I was very fortunate in my career to do several different types of roles, right? So where people have had a very stable career either in sales or finance or HR or something, I've actually been able to go and do work in several different departments across my 30-year career. So I started out in sales, I did a little bit of marketing, and then by some twist of fate, I ended up in HR, then came back into the business to do bid management and pricing, and then went back into HR to do a whole bunch of transformation, restructuring, mergers and acquisition and all of that, before finally ending up in enterprise excellence or Lean Six Sigma, managing teams that were doing massive projects across the region. So that has kind of rounded me off as the so-called multidisciplinary executive. And what I see now is now more than ever, companies are needing the skill sets required to perform successful transformations. So here I am.
Nice. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit of the different companies, if you're open to sharing, the different companies that you've been with in the past 30 years. I know that you were overseas for quite a bit, right? And then you came back to Singapore. So maybe you should just share with some of the companies that you were actually working for.
Yeah, I started my career in Singapore Press Holdings as a sales and marketing executive. And then I went on to another local company called Service Quality Center, which was really a joint venture company between Singapore Airlines and the then National Productivity Board. And what our mission there was to raise the level of service standards in Singapore. So in the course of doing sales and business development for them, I also acquired the skills of training to be a stand-up trainer, as well as a consultant, the process of consulting. Around that time came the internet, and I decided that I really had to become a small fish in a big pond rather than attempting to be a big fish in a small pond. So I was looking out for a multinational to go work with, and Northern Telecom turned up, Nortel for short. And it is there that I actually went into HR mainstream, and then ended up learning about how to do restructuring from scratch, how to do change management, how to get involved in mergers and acquisitions, and all of them. It was the highs and lows of telecom, as they call it. After that, I went to do my MBA, and I came back and I worked in Ecolab in 3 different capacities. That was for about 10 years. And then somewhere along the line, I got a second master's in environmental management.
There you go. So he's one of those smart blokes, much smarter than I am, with all that qualification. So so you're right now the chief futureproofist of this company that you started a couple of years ago, I think, and that's FutureProof Global Pte Ltd. What got you into this whole thing about future-proofing? In the first place, maybe you should just explain what future-proofing means.
Future-proof is a word that has been around for a long time, right? And it was used primarily in IT, where people did something before the end of life of the product to extend the shelf life of a product or infrastructure or something. So the word is now taken pretty regularly now to mean how do you keep your company afloat, or how do you grow your company, or how do you achieve excellence in your company, right? So I ended up doing this because of what I said earlier. I had been working in enough departments to know how a company operates. I've seen the highs and lows of restructuring. I've seen the highs and lows of mergers and acquisition. And I decided that all these have put me in good stead to start up my own consultancy, right? I think FutureProof Global is very focused in what it does. I get questions many a time that, hey, I'm about to be disrupted. Can you help me, right? So what does disruption mean, right? The other thing is around leadership and talent, which I always believe it needs to be adjusted, right? And a lot of people are not doing any adjustments right now because they don't think that anything new is happening, right? Whereas the business world has entered the fourth industrial revolution, right? Technology is growing at quantum pace. The millennials are flooding the workforce, but still a lot of people say, it's okay, we just leadership as per normal because that's what has made us successful in the last 10 to 15 or 20 years. Well, big no. And the third part that we do is around, I'm going to say business sustainability, but the word now that is being used is ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And a lot of companies are struggling with that because just when they were trying to put the environment into their business strategy, we now have bankers saying, we need your ESG plan. And a lot of companies don't have the skills, the know-how, or the budget to deal with it all at once. So I help them break it down into small size chunks and then address them.
Cool. So even myself, the other day I was talking to someone and this person mentioned ESG. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, fine, ESG. And I got, what is ESG? Right? Okay.
Happens.
So yeah. So the thing is this, right? When we start a business, I think almost any business person when they start a business, that's because they identify a problem, and if you can solve the problem, you get paid a lot of money for it, right? So, if companies, especially in Singapore right now, if they don't want to solve, or if they don't see that need for future-proofing their business, what do you think? What's going to happen?
I think
okay, the obvious will happen, yeah, but maybe you can just share. What do you think will happen?
I think a lot of businesses will become irrelevant if they don't choose to do something, right? So when we talk about business transformation, let me start with an example, and then I'll talk a little bit about going forward. So we know that in the past, a lot of business transformation or digitalization happened in companies because they wanted some sort of ERP system, right? And they'd get a budget for it, say we launch it in this year, it will last 9 months or 18 months, and this is how we are going to do it. Now the problem is everybody looks and says ERP system, IT is the job of the CIO, right? So the CIO and his merry men brothers.
So ERP basically is enterprise resource planning.
Yes, right.
Right, enterprise resource planning.
Yeah. So they end up doing this work and then launching it over a period of 5 or 6 weeks, department by department. But what's happening in the meantime? People are saying, we have no idea what this is. We are not interested in this. We are not interested in this change. We've been using the other system for 5, 10, 15 years. We're very comfortable with it. We see no reason to change, but this is being forced on us and, we don't like it and so on. And then the CIO has to resign or is branded a failure or something. And everyone looks down on the IT department because they are just encroaching on other people's work. Now, if we take this attitude, we realize that this is why we have that statistic around 60 to 70% of all business transformations failing. Spent a lot of money and then we abandoned them, or it didn't work out the way we wanted to. So going forward, right, I would say that the next phase of work will be defined by fueled by technology and enabled by millennials. Right now, if we look at these two and say,
that's cool.
That technology is not going to be, it's not going to slow down, right? New innovation is not going to slow down. In fact, it's only going to increase. Like when we talk about IoT and sensors and things, just one technology, right? It's already transforming transforming so many businesses, right? Just that one thing.
Okay, hang on. So maybe just explain what's IoT. I run courses sometimes, and when I mention IoT, like some of them like look totally blue, like what the hell is IoT?
Yeah, IoT
so
refers to
maybe you can
Internet of Things, and basically it's the use of sensors, right, to attach to your equipment, and then it collects a whole lot of data from which you can do the analysis and make choices about how you want to take your business forward, or what kind of product improvement or innovation is needed, right? So and a lot of this is also being understood by millennials. A lot of millennials are now making it to managerial and more senior positions, right? So to say that we'll just continue business as usual is not feasible anymore, right? Now, this is not even, this is even before mentioning ESG, right? Or climate change, or what are some of the issues with climate? Yeah.
Okay, so from that alone, I can see this struggle that can happen between the millennials and guys who have been in that line or in that business who so-called experienced for that many years, right? And if this is not resolved, we're going to see this problem happening over and over again, right? I mean, your take.
But here's the interesting thing, Vasu, it doesn't have to be like this, right? Because the so-called millennials, or those who are even younger, they're kind of born with a phone in their hands, right? Or they're very familiar and comfortable with these kind of devices, whereas people in a previous generation may not be. However, these youngsters don't come with that experience in business. They don't come with things like leadership or having done major projects or gone through cycles of business. So this is where what I call reverse coaching or reverse mentoring helps. So rather than this, you are now setting up a system where people can be this, right?
Nice, yes.
Someone like me, if I'm not familiar with technology, I can be put on a 3-month development plan with someone in my team who's maybe in the late 20s, early 30s, who's comfortable with technology, and I can learn from that person. Now, that person will look at me and say, well, he's had some senior leadership positions, he's done a massive project, maybe I can learn from this and learn what not to do instead of what I think I should do. So really, there are some synergies to be had with this reverse coaching and mentoring, rather than that friction that could possibly exist if between generations.
Yeah, and it's all a mindset, isn't it? I mean, so if you think about it, how would we or you then go about bringing this message across to companies? Because I mean, oftentimes you're going to get, especially business owners, we've been there for a long time, like what you said earlier on. We've been doing this for many years, and we've been successful, for a long time. How would we even go around presenting this idea? How would you go around presenting this idea or sharing this? I guess there has to be an urgency about it with companies.
So
how would you get a message across?
I'll give you a live example. Recently, I did a 90-minute presentation to a not-for-profit organization from Queensland, and they were comprised mainly of lawyers, right? And it was really wonderful to see that the transition from a group of elderly gentlemen or professionals who were transitioning this leadership of this organization to younger female executives, right? And they were all in the same room, about 25 of them. And this is the very question that they had, right? What do we do? We have a whole bunch of millennials entering the workforce. They're taking up leadership positions. What do they know? What do we need to do? And we have no idea what, for example, environmental economics or ESG or sustainability means, and how will it, how is it relevant to us? So I told them, okay, I'm going to introduce some topics to you, and I don't want you to say yes, no, maybe. I just want to clear your mind, and I want you to clear your own minds and just listen with an open mind, right? Because these are things that you're going to face every day, and yet you will say, oh, that's not my area of responsibility. Oh, that's not my skill set. But we are coming into a world where having that breadth of knowledge is as equally important as the depth of knowledge like we needed before. So I started talking to them about things like design thinking, about innovation, about technology, about human capital, about talent management as a system, right? I started talking to them about reverse mentoring. I started talking to them about ESG. And I feel that any questions, and of course, there were people who were fighting it. There were people who were disagreeing. No problem. But at some point, I said, all of this, if you've been following this carefully, you will realize you are in the process of building some sort of long-term culture. Not take the past culture and saying, oh, we've got millennials, we've got technology, but we're going to use the same culture to drive this forward. No, by the very fact that you are fueled by technology and enabled by millennials, just for starters, you are on a journey of a new culture, right? And when I said that, then people are going to start, well, we're saying, yes, starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You are right. But so many things to do. I said, that's the beauty of it. You don't need to do it all the time. All at once. You don't need to do this all at once. Break it up. Look at your priorities. Look at your strategic plan. Look at your vision. Look at your values. Look at your budget. And then we can marry all of this together and say, year one, this is what we will do. Year two, this is what we will do. And we will form teams to do it, what I call agile teams, right? We are moving into that place where agile teams from within the organization with certain skill sets come together, solve critical problems that the company is having or some pain point, break up, go back to work, come back for another project, break up, go back, and so on and so forth.
So basically, I say, look, all rules may not apply to the new context in a different context. Everything has changed, right? Technically, in this span of, I guess, 20 years, 30 years that we've been working, we basically see this movement from the from 3 to 4, right? From the third industrial revolution to the fourth, and I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised that within the next few years we're going to jump into a fifth straight off. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so Vasu, you're absolutely right. The first industrial revolution lasted for about 100 years. The second one lasted for another 100 years. The third one is around 50 to 60 years old, or maybe pushing 70, right? The next one will not take that long, right? We'll be at the most one generation, and we are ready to take on the fifth industrial revolution. That's my take. Now, let me tell you a little story concerning myself. So somewhere in 2017, I was looking back on my career and thinking, wow, what a ride. I've done this, I've done that, I know this, I know that. I would have never expected to be able to have so much experience in certain areas. And I asked myself, so Abe, where are your gaps in terms of development? And I realized that it was in the area of digitalization, right? I could spell digital, but that is about it. And I was beginning to see job opportunities that were asking for all sorts of jobs that as a HR person, I couldn't understand. So I said, big trouble here, big gap. I went to enroll to do a certificate program with Columbia University, right? And it was at that point that I realized that all this new accumulated knowledge around digital was benefiting the end of the third industrial revolution. And I said, wow, I'm at the end of the third industrial revolution and barely scratching the surface of digital. And that is one of the reasons why I said I have to be relevant for the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, I mean, you have that realization, and I hope more people can have that realization. My experience going out there, sometimes talking to some of HR managers, I don't want to sound negative, but oftentimes it's like what you said earlier. It's not my job; it's somebody else's job. Let the person go take care of it. I mean, I've spoken to somebody who was actually doing sustainability, and this person was saying, man, it's really tough to get that message through the organization. So they appoint 1 or 2 person who are in charge of sustainability, and they expect that person now to drag the whole load on their shoulders and educate the whole organization. I think that's going to be tough. I think this kind of stuff has to come from leadership. It has to marry again with the vision and the values of the company, and that has to be the main part of the, like what you say, the culture of the organization moving forward, right? Your
you know, when you look at C-suite in an organization, you're all the chiefs, right? Chief executive officer, chief operating, chief financial, chief HR, chief whatever you have, right? I think that the Chief Sustainability Officer should be at the same table as the CEO, CFO, and COO, right? These are the four primary people in my mind at the biggest table in an organization, right? The marketing, HR, all these other guys can come below that, right? But the Chief Sustainability Officer needs to have that perspective, right? That breadth to see what's happening in every part of the organization and what are some of the changes that need to be made, whether people are like it or not, or whether they are comfortable or not.
So it's not one of those things you just arrow somebody to do.
No, and if you notice, I mentioned earlier that banks and financial institutions are driving the ESG agenda, right? Now, CFOs are being trained to understand what sustainability is, what the environment means, what climate change is, and how they factor it into their reporting. It has become critical, right? CFOs have to do this. So that is why I meant the CSO, Chief Sustainability Officer, and the CFO need to be working together to make all of this happen.
Nice. It's all part of a system, isn't it? It's all part of that. Yeah. So so what would be one of your biggest challenges? I mean, if to get that message across, what would be your biggest challenge? What's the biggest stumbling block?
Like you said just now, mindset, right? I think you and I have been to a meeting where I was introduced as someone who knows about sustainability, and the person said I'm not a tree hugger, right? This is it's quite a challenge.
It's a misconception, yes.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge to get people to come to the table when it comes to sustainability or the environment or something like that, right? So I'll give you a couple of examples, right? So for example, if you look at the insurance industry, right, there are people still, because you have a sort of a HQ and then all the agencies are under that, right? And the agencies still believe that person-to-person interaction is still what makes the sale at the end of the day, right? And they are not realizing that insurance is one of the top 2 industries likely to be disrupted. In fact, it's already happening everywhere. And why is it likely to be disrupted? Because younger people, when they buy insurance, they take their phones, and in 5 minutes, they want an answer. This is the quote. Yes, no, maybe, right? If not, they'll have to go through an agent who will go back to the office, tell their people in the back room to get this data out, and they'll get it out and put it in a nice folder and meet you again for coffee. That's 2, 3 days, 4 days gone. None of that is important now, right? But insurance is belabored with chunky old systems. That needs to change, right? That needs to change. But we don't have that mindset there yet, even among senior people, right? Construction industry in Singapore, still relying on foreign labor. Are there companies here that are, going into IoT, doing robotics, all that good stuff? No, they are happy to be subcontractors because I use foreign labor. I get everything done cheap. Just take a portion and be happy with it, right? There's no, I want to be a top dog. I want to be involved in research. I want to be involved in, new technology, inventions and all that, nothing, right? And last but not least, like if you don't want to get into environment, but you do know that water, right? It's a precious commodity, right? And the construction industry uses a lot of water. Maybe there could be a national initiative around saving water for the construction industry. How do we save water? How do we reuse the water? How do we treat wastewater and reuse it? Things like that. But it's all happening at a very slow rate, right? So these are just 2 examples where I think we could make a lot of difference.
Well, I think even the training business, we're going to get disrupted very fast, very soon. Especially if you're very focused on, right?
I'm betting ChatGPT will solve that too.
Yeah, right. If you're focused primarily on knowledge and skills, that can be straight away. Like ChatGPT, it's going to kind of like replace teachers, going to replace trainers, going to replace anyone who is just focused on just knowledge and downloading knowledge and learning skills. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't know whether I'm safe or not. But maybe attitude, training, aptitude. I don't know. Maybe along those lines, attitude training along mindset might still be around, because I don't think a machine would be able to do that. And maybe application as well. I mean, that part of it might still be around. But I think knowledge and skills, if you're in the training business, be afraid. Be very, very afraid. Okay, so I mean, thanks for this whole thing. Maybe just one last thing. If somebody who thinks, who feels, or a company, I mean, like big companies, they got the benefit of, this whole global perspective. But there are many SMEs in Singapore, many small companies in Singapore, who are still running the way they've always been running. And then when we throw in things like, things like carbon tax and sustainability stuff and everything else, they're going like, okay, now what do I do, right? So how would they even get started? How would they even get started on this path? I'm sure there are some initiatives, but then again, we have sometimes seen initiatives happen and with certain agendas, and then it fizzles out. So how do you think someone could get started on this?
I think for a lot of leaders, I'm not mentioning age at this point. I mean, whether you're a young leader or an older leader, I think it is important to understand the nature of business today, right? The future of work. We're not talking about future of work, whether you can work at home or no. The future of work. What is that going to look like for your company, your industry, right? You need to sit down with your senior leadership team and envision an outcome, right? In the past, we used to say 5-year, 7-year strategic plan. You can barely have a strategic plan for about 18 to 24 months now, right? Or you must be nimble enough to adapt when the changes come. So envisioning, I think, is a very critical component. And in that envisioning, you not only look at your industry and where it's heading, but also your own internal, what is your own vision, what is your mission, what is your values, because values direct behavior. Nothing changes there. And also, how do you get this message out to the rest of your company, right? How do we come together and understand this, and then get the employees to say, this is how we do it, because they are the people doing the work on the ground, right? And together with that, Vasu, I must also say that one of the least understood initiatives in an organization is change management. Previously, when we had a strategic plan that said we're going to do something new, or we have these 3 products, or after restructuring and so on, we used to have change management, half a day, 1 day, 2-day training, as you know, right? But if you really think about it, today, everyone needs to be able to manage change. First, themselves, and then the group that they're leading or the organization that they're leading. And there are programs out there which actually help you to identify, learn, be able to know this, and use this as a at the drop of a hat, right? Say, there's change happening there. 3 people are affected, 4 are unhappy. How do I get them together and go through this process? There are tools for all of this. And every person from the CEO to the last person in the organization needs to be equipped with change management skills.
Absolutely. I don't want to blow my horn here, but that's what core does in the first place, right? Core training, one of those our key programs is about this anyway. But that's about core. So so what advice can you give somebody, or how can you help in this whole process?
Yeah, for leaders, especially at the top, take your eye off the 2 functions we've been looking at for almost all our lives, which is sales and finance, right? Pull your head up and look around you and see what's happening, not just in your company, but also in your industry, and read about how change is going to impact your company, how disruption is going to come to your doorstep, and then make some certain decisions around what am I going to do with my senior leadership team.
Cool. Yeah, that's it's so easy to get involved in the day-to-day stuff that goes on to make money. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, that is important. But to take a long-term perspective, without that vision, the next crisis comes along and bam, you're on the floor again, right? All right, man. So how do we reach you if somebody wants to get in touch with you? Get to know you. Maybe you can just share your website. I'll put your website in the notes following this, right? but maybe you want to share with us your company's name and your website.
Yeah, so my name is Abe Jacob. My company is FutureProof Global Pte Ltd, and our website address is www.futureproofist.com. Right? Why futureproofist? The guy who future-proofs is a futureproofist. So there you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, all right. So just to stay online, I'll go off recording. Just talk to you a little bit. So there we have it, folks. Mr. Abe Jacob from FutureProof Global Pte Ltd. I hope this has been. If you're listening to this, I hope you get some, maybe a wake up call, some pointers. And if you want to reach him, just check out the notes below, and or just give me a call, and or give him a call, right? And you're good, right? So thank you very much for listening. This is the call center, because every leader has a story to share. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.